Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, it is my pleasure to yield 5 minutes to the chair of the steering committee, the Honorable Rosa Delauro.
Gentlewoman from Connecticut is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, this week the Congress finally takes up its obligation to change course in Iraq. We have arrived at a new moment. Few responsibilities are more solemn for a member of this body than one in which he or she is obligated to register a vote of no confidence in their president in a time of war. Under different circumstances, I think most Americans would want to give their president the benefit of the doubt on matters of war, that they would want to trust the president's judgment to do what is right for our country, for our national security interests, and for our troops and their families, who never leave our prayers. It is a measure of how desperate matters have become in Iraq that the Congress considers this resolution of disapproval. Today, we find ourselves embroiled in a war that is not winnable, a religious war that is inconsistent with our original mission there, a war the American people no longer support. And with 3,100 American lives lost, sectarian violence threatening to spill over into the entire Middle East, and no prospect for a stable constitutional democracy in Iraq in sight, today we consider this war for not what we wish it were, but for what it has so clearly and tragically become, a mistake of historic proportions. As such, I will support this resolution opposing the escalation of this conflict. And with this debate, the Congress takes up its constitutional responsibilities with a sense of urgency and accountability that the public so desperately seeks from us. For too long, the Congress has asked too few questions and been all too willing to put politics and ideology before our nation's security. To be sure, matters of war are the most serious that I will deliberate over in the United States Congress. Indeed, such a vote was my first in the Congress in 1991. But with this moment, Congress now has the opportunity to take the country into a new phase of this war. To me, nothing matters more than getting this right. 4 years ago, I voted against authorizing the president to go to war because, as I said on this House floor, I believed taking unilateral action against Iraq would, quote, weaken our moral authority, our military effectiveness, and our ability to keep events under control afterwards. And today, 1 month into the new Congress, and for the first time since the previous majority rushed to authorize this war in October of 2002, every member of this institution, Democrat or Republican, will face a different choice. With the situation so clearly out of control, members can trust President Bush one more time as he escalates the conflict in Iraq, or they can support a change in direction that begins to redeploy our troops out of Iraq, that uses our military in the right way to make our country safer and raise America's standing so that we have both allies and moral authority to address our threats. To be sure, of all the concerns we take to the floor with, it is the deteriorating welfare of our troops that is most alarming. Of course, every American takes comfort in the heroism and the determination that our soldiers have shown. They have performed magnificently, but they have been charged with an impossible mission that undermines their incalculable sacrifice and has strained our military in countless ways, from manpower to morale. As the father of one Marine whose son has been deployed for the second time to Iraq wrote to me, and I quote, "You forget what it is like to actually sleep through the night without waking up to the horrible thought that you might not ever see your son again." Mr. Speaker, we all know our troops will do anything their country asks of them, but let us not ask them to escalate an unwinnable war. Today, virtually everyone agrees we need a new strategy. Everyone, that is, except for the President, who continues to pursue an objective the consensus judgment of our nation's intelligence agencies says has no chance of success. Indeed, in proposing an escalation of the current strategy, the President rejects conclusions drawn by the National Intelligence Estimate, the Bipartisan Iraq Study Group, his own generals, and perhaps most importantly, the American people.
Recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
In so doing, he sends what could be as many as 170,000 troops into a civil war that is being waged along sectarian fault lines that have existed for more than 1,300 years. Mr. Speaker, I am not willing to stand here in the well of the House of Representatives and not move to change our policy in Iraq. There are too many lives at stake, our security at stake. I support the conclusions and recommendations of the Bipartisan Iraq Study Group, but I've crossed the Rubicon on this war. I support phased redeployment over the next year and will seek every opportunity to mandate such a change in law. That begins with stopping this escalation. It is our obligation. Let us honor it.